So here's a wild thought. What if the technical rulebook for building a computer network was actually a profound framework for understanding and improving your own life? I know, it sounds a little out there, right? But the logic that engineers use to create order out of digital chaos, well, it offers an absolutely incredible blueprint for our own existence. This quote really gets to the heart of it. You see, network configuration is all about imposing a logical system on a bunch of physical cables and silicon chips. And in the exact same way, we can use a logical system to impose order, to create meaning, and to build connections in our own lives. And that's really the big question we're tackling here. We're going to dive into the core concepts of networking. I'm talking everything from its basic architecture to its decision-making protocols, and see how they perfectly mirror the challenges and the opportunities of just being human. Okay, let's jump right in with our first section, the architecture of you. In networking, all the complex tasks are separated into different logical areas or planes, so a device can run super efficiently. And you're going to see how this three-plane model provides a stunningly accurate blueprint for our own minds. Now, this is where it gets really cool. Look at how neatly these network functions map onto our own internal world. You can see it right there. The control plane is our strategic brain, the data plane is our daily action taker, and the management plane, that's our moment of self-reflection. Let's break each one down. So think of the control plane as the CEO. It's the thinker, the strategist. In a network, it's constantly running protocols to build a map of the world around it. In your life, it's that part of you that decides who you want to be. It's where your core values live, where you set your long-term goals and define your principles. It literally builds your map of reality. Next up, you've got the data plane. This is the workhorse. It doesn't think, it just does. And it does it incredibly fast. This is the world of your habits. See, when your control plane is clearly defined your values, I am a healthy person, your data plane just executes the habits, like getting up to exercise, without needing to stop and think about it every single time. A strong control plane makes for a really efficient data plane. And finally, we have the management plane. This is how a network admin logs into the system to check on things and make changes. For us, this is self-reflection. Things like journaling, meditation, or even talking with a therapist, they're all just ways of logging into your own management plane to ask that crucial question. Hey, are my actions, my data plane, actually lined up with my values, my control plane? All right, so that's our internal architecture. Now for part 2. Let's see how this whole structure helps us make decisions. A router's main job is to choose the best path for data, right? And the rules it uses for doing that are, frankly, incredible metaphors for how we can navigate our own lives. So get this. When a router has a few different paths to the same destination, it uses one simple rule. Always choose the most specific route. And this is a perfect illustration of the power of specificity in our own lives. A vague goal like, I want to be successful. Well, that's a fuzzy, non-specific route that's almost impossible to act on. But a super specific goal, that gives you a clear, immediate path forward. But okay, what information should you even base your path on? Routers actually have a built-in credibility scale. It's called administrative distance. A lower number means it's more trustworthy. And check this out. Your own direct experience is a 0, absolute rock-solid certainty. Advice from a trusted mentor? That's like a 1. Hearsay and random social media gossip? That's way, way up at 120. A stable life, just like a stable network, is all about prioritizing those low AD sources over the high AD noise of the crowd. But what happens when you have no specific path, when you're facing total uncertainty? Well, a network has a plan for this too. It's called a gateway of last resort, or a default route. This is your personal fallback plan, what you do when you just don't know what to do. It's the thing that prevents you from just freezing up, from dropping the packet. It could be a simple core principle, like, when in doubt, stay calm and ask questions. So we've covered our internal architecture and our decision-making. In this next section, let's talk about our relationships. The networking concept of segmentation gives us this really powerful model for how we can create healthy boundaries with the people in our lives. On a network, something called a VLAN creates separate, isolated groups. This is to stop traffic from one group from flooding and overwhelming another. It's a perfect metaphor for our social circles, isn't it? You have a work VLAN, a family VLAN, a friends VLAN, and having healthy boundaries just means that the broadcast storm of stress from your work life doesn't crash your family life. So think of most of your relationships as access ports. They connect to one specific social circle, one VLAN. But our deepest, most complex relationships, those are trunk ports. A trunk is a special kind of connection that can carry conversations from all your different VLANs at the same time. This is your spouse or your best friend, the person you can talk about work, family, and your deepest fears with, all in one high-bandwidth connection.
And that brings us to our fourth section, breaking bad habits. We all know what it feels like to get stuck in a destructive cycle. Well, it turns out networks have a very similar and potentially deadly problem called a switching loop. And the protocol they use to fix it holds a really profound lesson for us.
Oh man, we've all been there, repeating the same thought patterns or behaviors that always lead to the same negative outcome. These are our personal switching loops. It feels like we're doing something, but really, we're just burning up our emotional bandwidth and going absolutely nowhere. The network solution is so elegant. It's called the Spanning Tree Protocol, or STP. What it does is intelligently find any potential loops in the network, and then it logically blocks one of the paths. It keeps it on standby, just in case, but it breaks that destructive cycle. And the way it works is a fantastic model for us. First, STP elects a root bridge, a single central point of reference for the entire network. For us, this is our core purpose, our true north. Once we know what that is, we can identify the actions that lead toward it. Those are our root ports, and then we can intentionally block the destructive habits that were creating the loop in the first place. But here's the crucial warning. If you don't intentionally choose your core purpose, your root bridge, your life will elect one for you by default. And that default root bridge, it might be an old insecurity or a societal expectation that doesn't actually serve you. And that will lead to a life built on suboptimal path. Okay, let's zoom back out for our final section, the future. We've got our architecture, our decision-making, our boundaries. We even have a way to break bad habits. So what does this all build toward? It leads to a higher stage of maturity, something we can call intent-based living. You know, the evolution of how we manage networks perfectly mirrors our own personal growth. We all start in a kind of reactive state, just surviving. Then we move to a phase of fluent logic, where we're consciously configuring our lives. And finally, if we're lucky, we can arrive at a place of true systemic wisdom. For a lot of our lives, we're operating on what you could call the command line interface. It takes conscious, command-by-command effort to do the right thing. But the goal, the real goal, is to get to intent-based living. This is where your character and your wisdom become a kind of controller, automatically aligning your actions with your deepest intent, without all that manual effort. And that leaves us with one last, really powerful question. Every single network is configured to achieve a specific purpose, whether it's speed, security, or reliability. So as the architect of your own being, what is the core intent that you are configuring your life for?